After too long, according to my imaginary watch, the MCU has returned to the big screen. Hello everyone, my name is Ryan Cam, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Black Widow. This was directed by Kate Shortland, and it starred Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour, and Ray Winstone, among others. And, well, this is the Black Widow solo movie. I have wanted a Black Widow solo movie for a really long time. Like, when I first saw her in Iron Man 2, I said to myself, she's getting her own movie. I did not anticipate I would have to be waiting 11 years to see it, but we eventually got it. This was actually supposed to come out in May 2020. We all know what was happening in May 2020, so this movie got delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed until it finally settled down in the now of 2021, and we're all finally getting to see it, and I think we're all happier for it. I'm a big fan of the MCU. In my Movie Nerds Club video for top 5 long-running franchises, this was number 3. I get why people wouldn't like this series, but I dig it. I think it's just a really fun series. And I have to give nothing but respect to Kevin Feige, because pulling off this Marvel Cinematic Universe is the equivalent of rubbing the tummy and patting the head and chewing bubblegum all at once. It's nearly impossible, and yet Feige has not only done it in movies, but also in the Disney Plus shows to a lesser extent, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you really want to count that. And after a really long time, we're finally getting a Black Widow movie, and I thought this was a very mixed bag. Now, let me just say that I did not hate this movie. There were some parts of it that I genuinely really enjoyed, but I do have some issues with it. Firstly, though, the biggest compliment that I can give to this movie is Florence Pugh. She's awesome. I hope she gets work for the next 30 years, because she pretty much carries this entire movie nearly by herself. Honestly, Florence Pugh is so good in this movie and acts so well that, in a weird roundabout way, she kind of overshadows Scarlett Johansson. I'll get to her in a second, but Florence Pugh is genuinely great. Some of my favorite moments in this movie involve Florence Pugh heavily. Especially one scene where it's a very slow moment and it's Florence Pugh and Black Widow, and they're together and they're both having a beer and trying to decide whether or not they should go after the Red Room or just try and make it out on their own. I like that scene. That's one of my favorites. And I guess it's a good place to parlay into, well, the aforementioned Black Widow. She's kind of there in her own standalone movie. And this is not to reflect on Scarlett Johansson. I enjoy her as an actor. She's incredibly beautiful, but it just, I don't know, she was just kind of there for a good chunk of this movie. She does have her moments to shine as well, let's not get that twisted. And this is very much a Black Widow movie in the sense that Black Widow is there and she does Black Widow things, so that's all well and good. But there are several scenes where either Florence Pugh or David Harbour or Rachel Weisz just take over the scene, and you feel like she's just kind of stuck in the middle. That's about the extent of what I liked and thought was okay. Now for the parts I didn't like, specifically David Harbour and Ray Winstone. I'll start with David Harbour first. I did not like this character, and I have a feeling that this character was written to be this unlikable for like the first 2/3 of his screen time, and in the last third he gets a redemption. I get that, that's fine. But we have to muddle through a lot of crap in order to get to that redemption. There was a particularly frustrating scene in which the widows break David Harbour out of this prison. It's more like a sophisticated hole in the ground, but let's just call it a prison. And, well, they're not exactly enthused to see him. No spoilers. But let's just say he just starts saying, like, "What is wrong with you? Is it time of month?" And Florence Pugh's like, "I don't get my period. I had a hysterectomy." And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Because I remember Black Widow talking about that in a very underrated scene in Avengers Age of Ultron. remember, Avengers Age of Ultron is better than you remember. And Red Guardian's doing his blustering, he's like, I could have kicked Captain America's ass, and just all this other stuff. And I just found it off-putting. And there's a part of me that wants to say that that was kind of the goal. And if that is the case, it worked a little too well, because I could not stand this character. As a matter of fact, in a later scene, Scarlett Johansson calls him an idiot. And I should have felt sad, but I was glad, because Scarlett Johansson was correct in her assessment. Also, the gimmick of Red Guardian being able to beat Captain America, well...
I don't think so, Tim.
I'll touch on one more tonal shift problem that I had in just a second, but I want to talk about Ray Winstone, because I just did not like him as a villain. I just thought he was incredibly just forgettable. When we're talking about worst MCU villains, I think it has to be, let's say, Malekith and this guy. I can't even remember his name. Not to mention that Ray Winstone is a very British actor trying to do Russian, and failing miserably. This villain could have been played by the Swedish Chef, and it would have been more literate. And my problem as a whole with this movie is that there are these super weird tonal shifts that happen frequently. And I brought it up with the whole hysterectomy thing, and that was particularly jarring. But then earlier in the movie, there is another scene in which the two widows are kind of having a fight over, you know, why didn't you come see me, and I thought you got out, and just a whole big misunderstanding. And in the middle of the fight, Florence Pugh is like, oh, by the way, why do you do that pose you do when you stretch out your leg and go like that and flick your hair back? And I just sat there like, aren't you all fighting? It's like if I'm having a fight with someone and be like, oh, this is McDonald's, you hungry? So out of nowhere, so left field, it just was, I don't know what to say other than it was just jarring. And that's pretty much the extent of what I didn't like about this movie. I've seen online people kind of giving the Taskmaster a bit of hate because of the twist there. And I can sympathize to a certain degree because the person playing the Taskmaster is honestly pretty underrated and deserved better. However, I didn't like other things in the movie, and the Taskmaster thing was just kind of there for me. I think that's the best thing that I could say to describe my feelings on the whole about Black Widow. It was just kind of there for me. It's pretty forgettable. I have a feeling that I'll be in the minority on this one, and that's completely fine. If you like or dislike this movie, I completely understand why. Is this the worst MCU movie? Oh no, not even close. Like, Iron Man 2 took that crown a long time ago, and will not be leaving that throne anytime soon, in my opinion. However, at the halfway point, I was just sitting back and I was thinking to myself, wow, I hope Shang-Chi is better than this. But that is all for me. Thank you all so much for watching. What did you think about Black Widow? Like it, dislike it, thought it was okay? Leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you all have to say. Stay tuned for Sunday. I'll be dropping my first reaction to the Studio Ghibli film Howl's Moving Castle. But if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and if you like this video and you want to see more like it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to allow notifications. I'm trying to get to 200 subscribers, so if you really do like these videos, please drop a subscribe. It would really help. Thank you all so very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.